Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and we have yet another busy show in store for you this morning. We've got a lot of viewer comments after yesterday's program and before today's program. We've got some breaking stories we're going to get to right off the jump after we read viewer comments. We have quite a few updates on the stabbing in North Carolina. Also, New York State issues galore. So stick with us. It's going to be a good one. Let's go to viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Here is the tip of the week. Yes, this viewer is sending us in a tip of the week. Here we go. Synthetic wine corks are great for sealing partially used tubes of caulk. Drill a 5/16 inch hole into the cork, about 1 inch deep. The cork fits perfectly and makes an airtight seal. Well, thank you for that. There's your tip of the day to kick off your Tuesday morning. Rick wrote in yesterday evening saying, when is Trump going to dump Kennedy? He's tarnishing Trump's image. If your name doesn't begin with doctor, for starters, you shouldn't be running the agency. Then there's Pete the Leak Hegseth running the Department of War. He isn't allowed to make any decisions anymore. The Donald does that for him. His job is to shake his head in the correct direction without creating an oil slick from his hair. Then the rest of the pack that attends Trump's cabinet meeting, I'm not going to refer to exactly what he calls them, but PACA, which is sort for, we'll say, professional, what's a more polite term to use? Brown nosers. I have a great idea. There are these 1,600 not-so-ordinary citizens that Trump could send into, say, Chicago to straighten things up. The Donald holds these thugs in extremely high regard. My problem is maybe these 1,600 fine people may have committed more crimes than the people they would be after. Do you think maybe? I bet Trump is counting Epsteins when he is trying to get to sleep at night. He looks a little troubled. Enjoy, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Comment from a different viewer. This is from Scott. Good morning, Scott, because he says good morning, Frank. This is in regards to yesterday's broadcast. 1, Trump has the right to impose a Patriot Act. The only difference is the terrorists aren't flying planes. They're smuggling dope and people. 2, it's easy to see why it costs $13.5 million. And that's in reference to how much it costs to ban cell phones in schools. $13.5 million in the New York State budget. It's a lot of work to turn our wallets into phone bags. Yes. 3, as far as bid rigging, just take a look at who has the concession contract for the Bills' new stadium. And finally, 4, Hochul and Frankie, yes, Frankie Focus, should try the PR tricks in a dumpster. I like Oscar the Grouch. They could even have Big Bird sit in every now and then. I have an update on Frankie Focus, which is not something I ever thought I'd say on this program. We'll get to that a little bit later on. And finally, Mark writes saying, good morning, Frank, and I say good morning, Mark. Supreme Court allows the Trump administration to continue ICE roving patrols in California. Yes, and the trial begins for Ryan Roth, accused of the attempted murder of Donald Trump. I saw that. It was pretty wild what little bit I read this morning on that trial. We're also going to talk a little bit about ICE here as well. First, coming in late last night, in case you did not see, a drone reportedly targeted and struck the lead boat of a flotilla led by activist Greta Thunberg. The strike occurred on the family boat flying under a Portuguese flag in the Tunisian waters while carrying members of the flotilla's steering committee. They said in a statement, the committee included Thunberg and other activists and was inside the Tunisian port of Sidi Bou Said when the drone hit, according to the Israeli Times. The main deck and below deck storage were set ablaze and sustained damage. All 6 passengers and crew members are safe, according to authorities. Footage posted by the group showed 2 individuals on the boat frantically scurrying around after the apparent drone hit the boat in a flash of light. Thunberg, a 22-year-old eco-warrior, was on one of the 20 boats that set off for Gaza from Barcelona back in August 31st to be exact, and what they called the largest solidarity mission in history, while Israel threatened to arrest and detain her. Israel is again waiting to intercept the latest flotilla, this time with a plan to detain activists in harsh terrorist-level conditions in detention centers. Before her departure, Thunberg claimed her flotilla was part of a global uprising of people standing up to atrocities in Gaza. The incident remains under investigation and no further information is available, according to the members of the flotilla. So that is just a kind of a strange but a breaking story from yesterday. But we know that Greta Thunberg is very much an eco-warrior, like they said, an activist. And it kind of led to these two polls because it made me, in a way, think of her. First of all, we talk about campus free speech, and we talk about, unfortunately, the anti-Semitic protests that have run amok and the harassment and intimidation of Jewish students. What is interesting now, according to new polls, it doesn't even matter the political spectrum. College students believe they support even shouting down their opponents. Once just a kind of left-wing thing, the heckler's veto, as it's known, has gained conservative adherents, kind of fighting fire with fire. Until recently, these vices primarily belonged to Democrat students, with a staggering 79% of students who identified as strong Democrats agreeing that shouting down a speaker is at least rarely acceptable. Republicans have finally, perhaps belatedly, arrived at the party, with over half of strong Republicans now saying it's acceptable to shout down a speaker. That's according to Chaplain Lenthal Cleary, who works for the latest College Free Speech Ranking Survey. The survey asked respondents how acceptable they think it is for students to shout down a speaker, block other students from attending a speech, or use violence to prevent a campus speech. As of 2020, just over 80% of students who identified themselves as strong Democrats said these tactics were at least rarely acceptable, sometimes acceptable. Fewer than 40% of strong Republican students agreed. But over the years since then, the number of Democrat students holding that opinion has inched down just a bit, while Republican support has climbed close to 60%. Now, I know they're portraying this in a way as negative towards Republicans. It seems like after numerous Republican speakers and students getting shouted down and harassed, I guess they decided to, and I'm using Governor Hochul's term there, fight fire with fire. Republican students are still overall less interested in disruption, but when they are interested, they're really interested. Could we return to a tolerance for opposing views? It's not just college students, though. We see it at the town halls when a representative, and this is why I've said over and over again on this program, I think now is not the time to hold a town hall if you are a representative, because they're not done in good faith. Very much like this polling shows for college students, it's more of an opportunity for people to shout and scream and silence the representative, not to have the conversation. So kind of just echoing that. But this ties in with another poll that was released yesterday by Gallup. And this is not to discourage you, these two polls. They're just something to be made aware of as we look at, for instance, the gubernatorial race here in New York. We see that in New York City, the mayoral candidate for the Democrat Party is a avowed socialist. And so I say, watch that, not just laughing at Mamdani. I guess he had a really poor performance the other day at a forum where they're equating his delivery much to Kamala Harris's word salads. But remember, there's a lot of people that voted for that socialist. So why do I tie that in with gubernatorial? Because at the state level, those same people will be voting for a candidate. And that also paints a larger picture of what's happening nationally when we talk about socialism is on the rise. And I have a piece that hopefully we could get to later on where the author basically suggests it's not that socialism is on the rise, it's that the Democrats are on a fall. There's something to be said here. But according to Gallup, it found just 54% of U.S. adults view capitalism positively, the smallest share since the polling group started asking about the topic around 15 years ago. So what it says here, the latest survey conducted in August comes after a flood of recent data pointing to a tight job market, et cetera, et cetera. In the most recent poll, 95% of respondents said they supported small business, while 81% supported free enterprise. Big business did not fare as well. Only 37% of survey takers rated it favorably. Okay, Now, this is where it gets important. Republicans still overwhelmingly support capitalism at a 74% to 14% for socialism. Now, I don't know what Republican that I've ever personally met supports socialism, and 14%, you would think by accident you would meet one of those Republicans. But listen to this. Democrats and independents have waned in their support for capitalism in the last 4 years of the survey. This year marked the first time ever that a majority of Democrats rated socialism positively, and really rated positively. 66% of Democrats rated socialism positively, while just 42% viewed capitalism favorably. So when you look at many people trying to call Mamdani a fluke or AOC a fluke, it does not seem to be that way, as 66% of Democrats now have a positive view of socialism. Now, yes, we can tie that in with the failures of the education system. And I've always equated some of this to ego too, right? That socialism has never worked, has never been successful until I do it, until I'm involved. That kind of narcissism, that ego. That's, I think, some of it as well. So the failure of the education system sprinkled in with an ego or a I'm smarter than those that have tried it before, so we can make it work this time. But just keep that in mind, not to discourage you again when we talk about elections, but Democrats rating socialism positively by 66%. So 66% of Democrats, according to Gallup, have a positive view of socialism. Keep that in mind as we talk about not just statewide election, but also national elections. So does that mean the Mamdanis of the world, the AOCs of the world, are now the face of the Democrat Party? That the Democrat Party is easing away from the old guard, the establishment, and speeding into really socialism? Well, according to Gallup, it would tend to look that way. One last thing before we go to break. Then we got a couple other updates from stories I brought to you throughout the week, and then we're going to talk about North Carolina. I do have a few things here about the Democrat Party in general, tying in with that socialism if we get a chance. I just thought this was interesting. Full disclosure, I had the pleasure of interviewing Oliver North, but I thought some of you history buffs would, I don't know if history buffs is the right term, but I thought you may find this interesting. It was being reported late last night that Oliver North and his former loyal secretary, remember her, Fawn Hall? They have reportedly married in secret last month, 40 years after their leading roles in Iran-Contra. A copy of the couple's marriage license shows North, 81, and Hall, 65, were married in Arlington County, Virginia on August 27th. It was a secret wedding, according to sources. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole Iran-Contra story. You may remember because Hall was kind of a glamorous secretary, and she had allegedly helped, what's the word I want to look, destroy or hide certain materials. But anyway, the reason I find this kind of an interesting story is, and Oliver North is a fascinating guy. When I had him on the radio program, he has a tie to Elmira, and he was so sharp when I interviewed him. It wasn't even that long ago. He remembered him and some service members were very young in their career, were driving through Elmira and got in a very bad wreck. He almost died, and he remembered the doctor, and unfortunately I cannot remember his name, but an Elmira doctor that saved his life. He started off the interview with that story. Wanted the world to know his connection to Elmira, but also that doctor saving his life, as he said, a doctor saving his life not for the last time, but for the first time. But what we learned about this is North reconnected with Hall just last December at the funeral of his late wife of 56 years. She rekindled the relationship at the funeral. They started spending time together. The North Hall wedding was described as low-key, and none of North's 4 children attended, and they could not be reached for a comment. I just thought some of you would find that interesting. Kind of a little blast from the past, some names that you may not have thought about in a while. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, a couple updates, as I said. A lot to get to this morning. Stay with us. We're just getting warmed up, which is good because it's cold out. Stay with us.
Ferrari Auto Team.
The best campground?
Ask Google.
The best bait shop?
Ask Google.
The best Ram dealer?
Ask Google.
We did.
Google reviews from customers rank Ferrario Ram in Elmira the highest Ram dealer in our area. And remember what Don says.
If you don't see me, I can't save you any money.
Make this the summer event. Going on now.
Want to read about ancient wonders? Go to your local library today.
But this isn't your father's library. It's the home of creativity. Release your inner audio engineer or face off a dragon in the D&D club. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine rentals. Create with the 3D printer or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
This is a Sue the Collector Consumer Alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you. Call me now.
And no baby buffalo was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
Day one of the National Glider Competition. Severe flooding has caused major disruptions in parts of Steuben County.
Throughout the year, prison reform has become a priority around New York State.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Marcus Street in Corning. So glad that you've joined us. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. It's Steve. Hi, Steve. Yeah, it's okay for 5 people to die every weekend in Chicago. Just accept it. Don't mind the gangs that run the city. Just turn your head. Nothing to see here. Just because almost 100 people got shot each weekend, no big deal. So who's getting paid to make sure it stays that way? Crimes are down, they will say, but they won't mention that they lowered just about every crime. Keep defending them. New York is just as bad, but people still keep voting the same way. Enjoy the ride. Thank you. Yes, we're going to talk about that violence. And that's why I think President Trump has been very interesting in all of this and how he has been able to essentially make Democrats defend crime and defend already high crime rates, but they're not as bad. We're actually going to talk about it when it comes to that North Carolina stabbing, because that does paint a larger picture of the crime epidemic that we're dealing with throughout the country. But first, if you recall, I brought this to you, I think, rushed at the end of Friday's show. But Senator Tim Kaine, who was Hillary Clinton's running mate, last week, he found it extremely troubling that people believed that your rights are given to you by a creator, which is a foundational American belief. I mean, this is well established by many. But he called it extremely troubling that Marco Rubio suggested rights are God-given. The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the creator. That's what the Iranian government believes. There's a couple shocking things about this with Tim Kaine. Number one, that he almost seemed as if he had never heard that before, that rights were given to you by your creator. But the other thing that it shows you a lot about Tim Kaine and perhaps the Democrat Party is that the powers that be, the most important thing in the world is government. They decide which rights you have, which rights you don't have. Tim Kaine gets to decide those because he's a part of government. So it's a very scary statement, one based in ignorance and arrogance, if you will. The statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our government is extremely troubling. Well, Trump addressed this. He was at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. Trump said, under the Trump administration, we're defending our rights and restoring our identity as a nation under God. We are one nation under God, and we will always be. But as everyone in this room understands, it is tyrants who are denying our rights and rights that come from God. And it's this Declaration of Independence that proclaims we're endowed by our Creator with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The senator from Virginia should be ashamed of himself for many things, for things even beyond that. As president, I will always defend our nation's glorious heritage, and we will protect the Judeo-Christian principles of our founding, and we will protect them with vigor. We have to bring back religion in America, bring it back stronger than ever as our country grows stronger and stronger. He also said later on, we will never apologize for our faith. To have a great nation, you have to have religion. I believe that so strongly. There has to be something after we go through all of this, and that something is God. America has always been a nation that believes in the power of prayer, and we will never apologize for our faith. Ever, ever, never, never. We'll never surrender our God-given rights. We will defend our liberties, our values, our sovereignty, and we'll defend our freedom, and with that help of amazing faith communities across the land. So many are represented with us today. We will truly make this the golden age of America. Also, as an update, the Supreme Court has let Trump fire the Democratic FTC commissioner, Rebecca Slaughter, and as is the case, ... for now. It's always for now. Everything's kick the can down the road. The Supreme Court gave President Trump the green light Monday to remove a Democratic member of the Federal Trade Commission while litigation over her dismissal plays out. Chief Justice John Roberts temporarily stayed a lower court order that had permitted Rebecca Slaughter to remain with the independent agency after Trump initially ordered her ouster back in March. Roberts gave Slaughter's legal team until September 15th to respond to the emergency petition from Trump's legal team, arguing that he has the authority to remove her. In addition to Slaughter, Trump's March announcement removed Alvaro Bedoya, the two Democrats on the 5-person board governing the FTC. Bedoya initially challenged his firing, but has since dropped the suit. Last week, a split appeals panel on the D.C. courts concluded that Trump fired Slaughter without cause and flouted the 1914 statute that established the FTC, which oversees antitrust and consumer protection laws. The Federal Trade Commission Act stipulates that commissioners can only be ousted for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. Anyway, so for now, as is often the case, for now, he can fire Rebecca Slaughter. Also, in reference to Steve's comment, and this is before in the next segment we're going to go to North Carolina, but the Trump administration has launched a Chicago immigration crackdown called Operation Midway Blitz. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of teasing over the weekend that this would happen. The Department of Homeland Security said it is launching Operation Midway Blitz, a new initiative targeting undocumented immigrants who commit crimes across Chicago and Illinois. The DHS said a social media post yesterday. The operation is in honor of Katie Abraham, a 20-year-old woman from one of Chicago's northwest suburbs who was killed in a hit-and-run crash in January by Julio Cucol, a 29-year-old Guatemalan national who was in the United States illegally. DHS said the Immigration and Customs Enforcement operation will target people in the country illegally who commit crimes and flock to Chicago and Illinois. Hundreds of Homeland Security officials are expected to operate from a naval base outside Chicago. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement that the operation will go after the worst of the worst and accusing Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and other local politicians of releasing gang members, rapists, kidnappers, and drug traffickers that put citizens' lives at risk. President Trump and Secretary Noem have a clear message. No city is a safe haven for criminal illegal aliens. If you come to our country illegally and break our laws, we will hunt you down, arrest you, deport you, and you will never return. The announcement by Homeland Security comes as Chicago is bracing for the Trump administration's deployment of National Guard troops and more ICE agents. So we will be keeping a close eye on that. Not a huge amount of updates there, but we know that Trump had been teasing this. And then you have the whole J.B. Pritzker idea and some of the rhetoric he's been using, more so not to keep his citizens safe, because in this case it looks as if he is in support of the criminals, but more importantly in his mind, making sure that he moves up the chain when it comes to the 2028 Democratic contenders. Right now, Gavin Newsom, I know you remember the disastrous wildfire handling. But no, he is now the rising star. I would argue that Kamala Harris is probably number one on the list only because of the name recognition and the money that she spent over $2 billion just recently. But Gavin Newsom, I would say, is the front runner as of right now in the Democrat Party. And that's all because he is trying to copy Trump's style and tweets. That's where that party is at. When we come back, we're going to tell you a little bit of an update on North Carolina. We do have a lot of New York State issues to get to this morning as well. I see a couple comments, a couple waves coming in. Keep them coming in. Love to hear from you this morning. And we'll be right back after this.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
I'm Christy Kager from Piper Insurance, talking about the real-life savings of people you know.
Kathleen, Andre, Celine, and Melina of Corning were thrilled when they switched their insurance to Piper Insurance. We also saved Toninos and Horseheads more than $1,500 on their insurance. We'd love to save you money too.
As a local independent insurance agency, we'll shop more than 12 insurance companies to find you a great price with good coverage. Piper Insurance. We make insurance easy.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox. The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Viewer writes in, did you see that a 102-year-old man climbed some mountain? He could barely walk and needed 2 sticks to help him do so. So I looked it up. I had not heard this. Missed it from over the weekend. A 102-year-old man from Japan has set the Guinness World Record for the oldest person ever to climb to the summit of Mount Fuji for the second time. Koichi Akazawa climbed to the top of the 12,388-foot Japanese peak on August the 5th with the help of his 70-year-old daughter, her husband, and some friends. He told the Associated Press, the man who was born in 1923 said, I'm impressed. I climbed so well. There you are. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I had not heard that. Okay. So the deranged homeless man charged with stabbing to death a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee on a Charlotte train was out free on cashless bail after he was released with just a written promise to show up for court despite a nearly 2-decade history of violence and mental illness. So he was out on cashless bail when this stabbing occurred. Nearly 2-decade history of violence and mental illness, and this magistrate said, here, just give me a written promise that you're going to come back to court. This, and I know this is North Carolina, but we talk about the same thing with cashless bail and bail reform here in New York State. DeCarlos Brown Jr., who's 34, was arrested at least 14 times in North Carolina for crimes ranging from assault and firearms possession to felony robbery and larceny dating back to 2007. His own mother told the local TV station WSOC that her son was schizophrenic and should never have been allowed to roam the streets. But Brown was a free man right up until the moment cops said he viciously stabbed Irina Zartowska in an unprovoked and cowardly sneak attack as she rode the train home from her job at a local pizzeria. The video is horrendous. I'm not going to go through all the exact details. Obviously, the killing has exposed major safety flaws on Charlotte's mass transit system. He was already an alleged fare beater, taking both a bus and the Lynch Blue Line train without paying a cent. Additionally, it has emerged that local cops do not even police the Charlotte area transit system. Security has been outsourced to professional security services since last December. Following the attack, oh yeah, have you heard this? Well, hold on. I got to tell you what the mayor said and I think governor said. But we now learn from Kash Patel and Sean Duffy that this murder is under federal investigation and will have national implications. Patel says the FBI has been investigating the tragedy from day one and even hinted that new developments could be released soon. Stay tuned, he said, suggesting that the federal probe could reveal more than what has even been disclosed thus far. Duffy is also going to investigate the Charlotte transit system and how they failed to protect Irenia. Duffy's announcement is tied directly to a recent message from Trump's zero-tolerance message regarding crime. Duffy said, if mayors can't keep their trains and buses safe, they don't deserve the taxpayers' money. That's a fair point. Donald Trump saying yesterday, President Trump said, I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic. The man had just got up and started. It's right on tape. It's not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. He's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country. WSOC reporter Joe Bruno said that they heard from the suspect's mother, who is not making excuses for her son and deemed his actions atrocious. It was horrible and it was wrong. He reminded his audience that this previously reported that Brown served more than 5 years on an armed robbery charge, and Brown's mother said he began saying weird things upon his release. She says she got Brown evaluated, but his behavior became aggressive, so she got an involuntary commitment order from the courts. He was placed under psychiatric monitoring for 2 weeks and diagnosed with schizophrenia. But after he was released, she says Brown became so aggressive she had to kick him out. He became homeless. In January, Brown was arrested for misusing the 911 system. Police said he called from the hospital and claimed someone gave him man-made material that controlled when he ate, walked, and talked. Despite his criminal past and homelessness, Magistrate Teresa Stokes allowed him to be released from jail on a written promise to appear in court last month on his charge. His public defender questioned Brown's mental capacity. Judge Roy Wiggins ordered a forensic evaluation. So that is an update. Now, Charlotte's mayor underplayed the murder of the Ukrainian refugee. The mayor, V. Lyles, called the murder of the young Ukrainian refugee woman a tragic situation that sheds light on problems with society's safety nets related to mental health care. That's just normal. Rich Lowry says what Lyles calls a tragic situation was a gruesome crime, and a lack of social safety nets must be her way of admitting that Charlotte seriously failed to confine a deranged repeat offender so he couldn't continue to menace the public. Again, we know that the alleged killer was schizophrenic. He even assaulted his sister at one point. While on the street, Brown repeatedly demonstrated his out-of-control madness, and still no one had the sense to take him off the street. Police interacted with Brown 3 different times in 2024 and referred him to resources, although no one knows what that means. Brown's story is shocking, yet all too familiar. It recurs over and over again in cities that tolerate the untreated mentally ill sleeping on grates. Since the great wave of deinstitutionalization in the 60s, we've lost a collective will to insist that those suffering from serious mental illness got help in an institution if necessary. This requires spending more resources on psychiatric beds and changing laws to make it easier to mandate treatment and institutionalization. They acknowledge this does not entail, as the mayor put it in her statement, villainizing the mentally ill. Yes, her statement said that's what they were doing in this. People were villainizing the mentally ill. Mayor V. Lies refers to, she says that Brown has long struggled with mental health and appears to have suffered a crisis. The Post editorial board took it a step further, saying, shame on the mayor. Charlotte, North Carolina Mayor Vi Lyles says she's disappointed that the video of the shocking murder is now public and thanked media outlets for not sharing the brutal footage. Appalling. While Lyles now pretends the blackout was to show respect for Irina's family, her statement 2 weeks back to local newspapers make it plain her concern was for the vagrant arrested for the deadly stabbing. Lyles wanted the video out of sight, not because she cares for how the family feels, but because it exposes the corruption and menace that lurks right under the surface in our crime-ridden cities. And things like bail reform only make this work. The tape leaves little doubt that deranged ex-con DeCarlos Brown Jr. did it. Lyles lamely claims he appears to have suffered a crisis and blames problems with society's safety nets, as she insists we will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. Could we maybe arrest our way out of lunatics killing random victims on public transit? Could we maybe do that? Sure, get them help when they're brought in. Don't substitute jails and prison for more compassionate confinement. But don't pretend leaving them running loose makes any sense at all. Brown's long arrest record describes a violent, seriously mental ill man who posed a clear threat to law-abiding innocents. But yet these judges continue to essentially let them off with a warning. His own lawyer pleading that he had issues. Mayor Lyles claims she's been thinking hard about what safety really looks like in our city in the wake of Irina's murder. She claims the Charlotte area transit system is by and large a safe transit system, yet it makes no effort to go after people like Brown. When leftist officials in blue cities talk about real safety and making people feel safe, it's time to triple lock your doors, because what they mean is more social spending, fewer arrests, and less incarceration. Lyle's response to this horrific murder is exactly that sort of feckless musing about safety. Yet the true answer is obvious. Put criminals in prison, institutionalize the seriously mentally ill, and fire the judges and elected officials who put the public at risk. And I know this is North Carolina, folks, but this is what we've talked about with bail reform here in New York as well. And the governor, Josh Stein, a Democrat, was criticized for calling for more cops in response to stabbings on the train. I'm heartbroken for the family of Irina Zaruska, who lost her loved one to this senseless act of violence, and I'm appalled by the footage of her murder. We need more cops on the beat to keep people safe. That's why my budget calls for more funding to hire more well-trained police officers. In response, Representative Tim Moore and Senator Tom Cotton were among the many people who pointed out that Brown had been arrested and released roughly 14 times, adding that the problem isn't the number of police, but rather the soft on-crime judges. Moore writing, "Are you serious? Our law enforcement officers arrested this guy over and over again. This is a matter of having soft on crime, leftist judges and magistrates turning these career criminals loose." Senator Cotton wrote, "If Governor Stein really cared, he would call to revoke Roy Cooper's Task Force for Racial Equity that kept Zaruska's killer on the street. Even after 14 arrests, the problem isn't the number of police, it's Roy Cooper's pro-criminal policies. What more can police officers do when our legal system caught and released a man 14 times? We've got a few other things on this. We're going to move along. We've got a lot of comments, a lot of things to get to this morning, a lot of New York State updates as well that you're not going to want to miss. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the Southern Tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street Corning. Let's go to a few viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I hate to say, but do people realize that we are all sitting ducks as long as we allow an elected Democrat? The liberals turn a blind eye to these horrific crimes and actually promote it, not there aren't rhinos, and actually promote it. Not that there aren't rhinos who are showing their true colors as well, but I don't understand how anyone can vote for a Democrat ever again. I know we're talking about North Carolina here for a moment, but if you look at one-party rule in Albany and think of the disasters, raise the age law, bail reform, the end of something as simple as the HALT Act, or the HALT Act, I should say, not the end of it. I know I joke with it when Sheriff Allard's on the program, but whenever Albany's in session, you just get nervous about how criminals are going to be coddled even more, and law enforcement is going to have their hands tied even more. Comment from a different viewer. Hi, Frank. Well, hi. Did you see the story about the 63 criminals that have been arrested over 5,000 times in New York City? And this viewer actually goes on to give us more info on that. On August 2025, a New York Post report detailed that 63 career criminals in New York City's subway system have accumulated more than 5,000 arrests among them. The report stated that only 5 of those individuals are in jail at the time of the report. Wow. But the viewer continues, yet they are still allowed to walk the streets. If I could, I would be out of this state so quick, but currently can't. Not at least for another 2 years. You raised the point that we've talked about a million times, this idea that people have 5-year plans, 10-year plans before leaving the state when they can get everything figured out, because this is why Lee Zeldin did so well against Governor Hochul. Granted, not winning, but because he talked about what people cared about, which was public safety. And that's why she tries to mislead you and why she tries to confuse you with, we changed bail reform, or we changed this. And it did absolutely nothing. We know that. It did nothing to add teeth to the bill. It just made it a PR campaign for her. Back to North Carolina. So, just to show you, if you ever use Wikipedia, Wikipedia has been criticized for being far left. Wikipedia is actually censoring and manipulating the story. A woman that was stabbed to death on that train. Wikipedia wants to erase her story. A Ukrainian woman was stabbed to death by a serial criminal. Those facts are too much for some of the online encyclopedia's editors to bear. And you can find this at the Free Press. It goes through and highlights how they tried to bury this, erase this. They're not the only ones. We talked about it yesterday. The media as well. The media does not want this story out there because they don't want people to see that crime is a real epidemic in this country. Today, Wikipedia's treatment of Zaruska's killing lays bare the double standard, which is neither indirect nor abstract. That double standard is very real and very deliberate. While the editorial debates in newsrooms almost always remain opaque to the public, Wikipedia archives its deliberative process. The power wielded by a small group of volunteer encyclopedia editors and administrators rarely makes headlines, yet their decisions ripple outward, informing what journalists report, what search engines surface, and how the public understands reality in recent history. In the case of Urana Zaruska, the fight over whether her killing merits a Wikipedia page is more than an editorial squabble. It's a real-time demonstration of how information is filtered and how easily a victim can disappear even when her killer is caught on tape. Brian Stetler took it a little further here. And by the way, we have to take another short break. When we come back, we are going to move on to New York State stories. Because we've got a lot to get to there. But CNN chief media analyst Brian Stetler was on News Central. And he said that the murder of the Ukrainian refugee Zaruska on that Charlotte light rail train last month is being used, quote, by MAGA media as a political symbol, which is stoking racism, instead of saying what this very much is about, which is public safety, which is about crime in this country, at a time when the president is trying to crack down on crime. I wonder why they're trying to keep it buried. Brianna Keeler said, this actually happened last month. It only gained national news attention here in the past couple of days. Why is that? Because they didn't want to report on it because Trump is now cracking down on crime. But I'll tell you what Stetler had to say. Well, most murders in the U.S. never become national news. This one has garnered attention for a couple of reasons. Number one, first and foremost, the recent release of that gruesome video. Second, the energy from pro-Trump activists. They picked up on the video from local news and ran with it. It's a little bit like the times when civil rights groups have raised attention about police-involved shootings. In this case, it is Trump-aligned influencers who are posting up a storm about this case on social media. Really, over the weekend, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, other Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. We heard President Trump asked about it yesterday when he was heading home from New York City. He didn't seem to know much about it. He said he would get briefed, and then today Trump did know all about it. That's exactly what has happened here. This story has trickled up from local news to social media and now to the president's attention. And it's being used, as you know, Brianna, as a political symbol, with MAGA media calling for more forceful punishment and more incarceration. I have to say, some of the replies to Musk, some of the comments around the story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman. The open racism on sites like X today is eye-popping. But there are also legitimate questions about this so-called career criminal, someone who has been a repeat offender. Those questions, I hope they're not lost amid all these cesspool kind of comments on social media. So after he tries to have them be lost by suggesting some type of racism is stoking this, and then says, but I hope that, the fact that he was a repeat offender doesn't get lost in all of that. No, the conversation has to be had about these bail reform laws, these cashless bails, these judges that are letting these career criminals go. But you can't when those conversations aren't done in good faith, as Stetler has proven with his take on what is happening. But we got to take a break. Whew. We're moving fast this morning. It is unbelievable. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Your tap water is delicious. I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system. What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
This isn't your father's library. Create with the 3D printer. Release your inner audio engineer or sewing machine riddles, all with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Your teams, your highlights, your scores. Get more of what you want. To the end zone. Stream your teams live. It's free with your pay TV subscription. Grab
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio this morning. Thank you for joining us. Let's go to some viewer comments. New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed a package of legislation intended to strengthen worker and labor protections statewide on Saturday. So the person that fired all the corrections officers that were fighting for their rights is supposedly signing a bill to help protect rights. You literally can't make this stuff up. Yeah, she was not a big fan of unionizing during the CO strike, was she? Coming from a different viewer, the liberals claim to be compassionate, but how does cutting loose a homeless person with mental health issues help that individual? Great question. I don't know how that shows compassion. I have no idea. Now, to that viewer who wrote in a little bit earlier on that they want to leave the state, but probably not for 2 years. Well, according to a new Wallet Hub study, the happiest states in America. Are you ready? Number 1, Hawaii. Number 2, Maryland. 3, Nebraska. I'm not going to go through all. I'll skip ahead. Coming in at number 16th of the happiest states, New York. Would you say that ranking is correct? Pennsylvania coming in at 18. All right. So there you are. For whatever that's worth, I thought that was one way to kick off our New York State topics for this morning. Oh, by the way, before we tell you a little bit more about Frankie Focus, and by the way, if anybody has any anecdotal stories about how the cell phone ban at schools, how it's going, I'd love to hear from you. But right down the road in Oswego, I guess there's a tent encampment that is formed outside of the Border Patrol station in Oswego that began yesterday. The protests are believed to be associated to a group called Indivisible. Now, Indivisible is one of the groups that has a lot of money being thrown around. Very often people say that some of these protesters, I'm not suggesting the protesters in Oswego are that way, but many of the paid protesters come from groups like Indivisible. Now, I want to make clear, not all protesters affiliated with Indivisible are making money. I think it's sad the ones that don't. I think there are people that actually believe in that cause that are doing it because they want to protest, but then there's others making financial gain off of it. So if you are thinking that you want to protest, make sure you get your check too. Get what's coming to you. Everybody wet their beak. That's a national activism group, by the way, Indivisible, which has chapters in local communities. You've probably seen chapters of it here locally during some of the protests against Trump on No King's Day and like that. The group on Facebook said it's protesting the immigration raid in Cato on Thursday when federal law enforcement detained dozens of workers at a nutrition bar manufacturer. The Cayuga County Sheriff's Office said it's assisted in the execution of an arrest warrant by doing traffic and public safety operations. The same Border Patrol station was the site of dozens of protests gathered Friday night demanding answers about the people detained. This coming from CNYCentral.com. So that's all we have right now, but right down the road. Okay. We got to wrap up this hour. We're going to talk about New York State issues here very soon. We've got some issues on Democrats. Oh, well, no, I can't start doing that because we're running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
This is a Sue the Collector consumer alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you. Call me now.
We've had many wonderful memories as a family. Dropping Shelly off at school, I prayed he wouldn't get stuffed in a gym bag. Missy might have been the one in Little League.
I'm asking the Lord to watch over my little girl. Well, while you're at it, ask him for a win. I got money on this.
But Georgie is the one who threw us the real curveball.
I got a girl pregnant.
Oh, no. Are you kidding me? We may not be perfect, but to me, we have the perfect family.
In Albina, Buffalo, was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized and a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
Day one of the National Glider Competition, severe flooding has caused major disruptions in parts of Steuben County.
Throughout the year, prison reform has become a priority around New York State.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Has anyone realized they want cell phones banned from schools because teachers don't want to get caught indoctrinating our children? Thank you very much. A different comment. This says 18 million. I've heard 13.5, so I'm not sure where the 18 comes from, but spend 13.5 million or 18, according to this viewer, millions of dollars for something that could have cost nothing. Say the phones are banned. If kids get caught, warn them, then suspend. Eventually expel. Seems more than reasonable. That's why we've been shocked from the beginning from the 13.5, and you had New York City Public Schools saying, that's not enough. I guess maybe the cost is for those, what they're calling yonder bags, or I guess that's a company name, where you put your cell phone in there and it kind of locks it up. We are wrapping up this hour. We're going to talk about New York State issues when we come back. We're going to tell you about Frankie Focus. We still don't know the exact cost of that. That's probably coming from some of that 13.5 million. But one outlet, John Campbell, he writes, how New York hired Frankie Focus. We're going to tell you about that in the next hour. We are not avoiding the topic in any way, shape, or form. We just haven't had a chance to get to it. What are your thoughts about these Epstein documents? You've got the birthday card, for lack of a better word, that President Trump has denied sending at the time. He said it's not his signature. I know many people have dissected it, said it's not his signature. But that is the major story. Many of the major outlets, the mainstream media, ignoring Bill Clinton's letter in there. It's getting really kind of a back and forth. I don't know how much we'll get to it because it is rather a breaking story. And there's a lot of back and forth on this. And as I said, the Trump administration is completely denied. This was his letter right from the jump before it was even released. J.D. Vance saying yesterday Democrats don't care about Epstein or his victims. That's why they were silent about it for years. The only thing they care about is concocting another fake scandal like Russiagate to smear President Trump with lies. No one is falling for this, we'll say. Baloney. So if we get a chance, we'll talk about that. But we do have a lot of New York State updates as well. Don't forget, because I don't want to forget, that the 11th Annual Tri-County First Responder of the Year Award will be presented at the Patriot Day Remembrance Ceremony. If you haven't been to this, it's a moving, amazing event every September 11th. This year's ceremony, of course, Thursday, at 11 a.m. at the First Responder Honor Park on the corners of South Hamilton Street and Forest Drive in Gang Mills. The award recognizes exemplary performance by a first responder in protecting and preserving life, limb, and property. This year's honor goes to Chief Glenn Vogel from the Campbell Fire Department, nominated by Assistant Chief Jeff Bears and Steuben County EMS Coordinator Brandon Rossetti. But again, attend this event if you've never been. Bring tissues. But it is an amazing event. September 11th at 11 a.m. at the First Responder Honor Park at the corner of South Hamilton Street and Forest Drive in Gang Mills. All right, hour number one in the books. We still have so much to cover, and we have a really good opinion piece, an op-ed from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. I know we've been talking a lot about energy, which also reminds me, I can't believe I forgot to mention this earlier. Former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski is going to be our guest on Thursday. I meant to mention this on yesterday's program. He is scheduled for Thursday. I know he's a fan favorite, so make sure you get your questions in for Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. All right, hour number one in the books. Hour number two, mere moments away. Stay with us.
In the heart of nature, collisions happen when you least expect them. Deer hits can turn a tranquil drive into a chaotic moment. When the unexpected happens, turn to Scott's Collision. At Scott's Collision, we understand the frustration of unexpected encounters with wildlife. From dense to more extensive damage, we've got you covered. When nature and your vehicle collide, trust Scott's Collision to bring it back to life.
Want to read about ancient wonders? Go to your local library today. But this isn't your father's library. It's the home of creativity. Release your inner audio engineer or face off a dragon in the D&D Club. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine rentals. Create with the 3D printer or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
I have been hugely blessed to have all this, and I want to share it. Safety first, goggles, mask, because the sawdust can do a number on you. They're welcome to try any of my tools. I just don't want them hurt. We gotta know what they're doing. Just a total blessing for me.
And welcome to hour number 2 here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is Frankly Speaking. And I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. We have so much to cover. I do appreciate you being a part of it. I don't know how we're going to get everything in just 1 hour to go. But make sure you get your comments in, your questions. All right. I know the week has been kind of... Well, has it been a week? It's been longer than that. It was since probably mid last week. Our big topic has been Frankie Focus. Frankie Focus is the mascot to, I guess, inform kids about the cell phone ban. Now, there's been criticism even by supporters of the cell phone ban and supporters of Governor Hochul who have said, why would you cater to kids that really the cell phone ban isn't affecting as much? The younger kids aren't really the ones that are going to go through the detox, so to speak. It is going to be the high school kids who are not going to be impressed by a mascot. Well, before we get into some heavier issues in New York, I thought this was worth mentioning. John Campbell writes how New York hired its chaotic new phone ban mascot, Frankie Focus. Finally, the hard-hitting expose we need on this program. When Governor Hochul is trailed by the state's new neon green, shaggy-haired phone ban mascot, the person inside the costume may be pocketing $300 minus agent fees. So you have to have an agent to be Frankie Focus? Well, $300 isn't bad money. Hochul unveiled the monstrosity, similar to what you would find at a professional sporting event at a Brooklyn middle school last week. The character is part of the governor's ongoing efforts to promote one of her signature achievements, the state's new ban on smartphone use in public schools, which went into effect this month. Now get this, I'm not making this up. A casting call posted last month to a handful of websites that actors prowl for their next big gig provides a window into what the state had in mind for Frankie Focus. Candidates had to be between 5'5" and 5'9", with a shoe size of 9.5 to 10 for men, 11 to 12 for women. They needed high energy and physical stamina. Mime, improv, and dance skills were considered a huge plus in all caps, since the casting call made clear that they were auditioning for a non-speaking role. And of course, they had to be comfortable performing in a full-body mascot costume. A talent agency working on behalf of the State Office of General Services crafted the casting call. It promises to pay $300 per event, minus the agency's 10% cut, plus travel, reimbursement to non-union performers aged 21 to 45 in the New York City, Buffalo, and Rochester areas. So they're non-union? That's interesting. Frankie Focus embodies the energy of a 14 to 16-year-old boy, the casting call reads. He's fun, silly, a little chaotic, but his heart's always in the right place. He hates seeing someone on their phone. Sam Spockany, a spokesperson for Hochul, said Frankie Focus will be played by volunteers, such as workers who agree to put on the costume more often than by hired performers. Ooh, that means interns, or that means the low person on the totem pole that gets the, hey, you want to keep this job? Put on the mascot, the smelly mascot costume. There's going to be a lot of people suffering through a lot of events. Frankie is so full of energy that he actually doesn't need too much hired talent, and that's why he's utilizing volunteers for most of his appearances and photo ops. The bottom line is that our kids succeed when they're learning and growing, not clicking and scrolling, and we'll keep working to ensure distraction-free learning delivers the best results for New York schools. Hochul's administration launched the character as part of a statewide public service campaign called Team Phone Free, which features a handful of cartoon characters who appear on billboards and in online advertisements. Frankie, who sometimes wears thick-rimmed glasses as an apparent show of his dedication to remaining focused, is only one of those characters the state brought to life with a full-size mascot costume with bulging, unblinking blue eyes and fleshy elf ears. People say he's terrifying. For the honor of donning the Frankie costume, the casting call asked actors to submit short videos, no more than a minute long, miming out a scene, sans words, where they spot their best friend across the street. Quote, they don't see you because they're on their phone and about to cross the street. Get their attention. Finally, they see you just in time. You are both reunited and all is well. The casting call encouraged actors to find the physical, comedic moments in the scene and also to keep it simple, short, and clear. So far, the Frankie Focus mascot popped up on the first day of school at MS 582 in East Williamsburg. He also has a social media presence, with his handlers posting a photo of the hair-covered mascot leaning against a tree on the massive marble Albany structure known as Empire State Plaza, with the caption, "Nature is low-key gorgeous, bro." But the casting call makes clear further events are in the mascot's future. The candidates were told Frankie would be touring schools across New York State, with up to 2 events per day through late October. The mascot will follow a government official, shake hands, and interact with a diverse audience. It wasn't clear how many applicants tried for the role of Frankie. The talent agency that posted the casting call, T Creative Castings, didn't respond to a request for comment, while the state offices of general services didn't immediately provide a number. There you are, folks. Only the biggest hard-hitting breaking news on Frankly Speaking. But speaking of acting, and speaking of wasting New York State money, we are on track in New York to spend $1 billion subsidizing TV and film productions this year. Now, I know Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, we've had this conversation with him numerous times. Is there not better ways to spend our money? New York taxpayers are on a pace to pump almost $1 billion into lavish subsidies for television and film production this year to keep them in New York. We're paying people to stay in New York now. Saturday Night Live, which I know Phil's, Assemblyman Palmisano's whole statement is, wait a minute, don't they start each broadcast with live from New York? They're not going anywhere. But Saturday Night Live and FBI Most Wanted sucked up around $21 million in tax credits each in just the first 3 months of 2025, part of a whopping $230 million that New York shelled out for the industry for the same period. Why is Saturday Night Live getting that much money? They're not going to leave New York. Wow. That's around $65,000 for each job created by the productions for the quarter. $65,000. The governor and legislature are happy to waste enormous amounts of our tax dollars on an utterly debunked trickle-down economic scheme because of the substantial political reward they get from the Motion Picture Association, its corporate members, its unions, and tens of millions of dollars of Top Gun Albany lobbyists. New York makes back only about 30 cents for every dollar it spends on the film tax credit, according to a study commissioned by the state and released last year. So Reinvent Albany is the one that is being critical of this. The Motion Picture Association, the main lobbying force driving the program, declined to comment. The group's tax counsel, Brian O'Leary, said there were billions of dollars of value that were not taken into account in the state's report that would have told a more complete picture of the economic story of this industry. All right, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I thought some of these were worth mentioning. Saturday Night Live received the most money. Yes, the show that begins with Live from New York and Saturday Night Live. To stay here, they received $21.2 million for 254 jobs. $21.2 million. FBI Most Wanted Season 2, $21 million. Dead Ringers, $20.8. Power Book 2 Ghost, $20 million. The Watcher, $16.2 million. Dr. Death, $15.7. Let the Right One In, $15.5 million. FBI Most Wanted Season 1, $15.2 million. So kind of FBI Most Wanted was the one that made the most. Katie Keene, $12.6 million. And Only Murders in the Building, $12.3 million. State Assemblyman Ed Ray from Nassau said, what interest of the New York taxpayer is being advanced by giving $21 million in breaks to Saturday Night Live, which is so synonymous with New York State that they start each show by announcing live from New York at Saturday Night Live. Are they going somewhere else? James Skoufis, state senator from Orange, said the state should be making economic development investments based on evidence, not feel-good anecdotes or flashy headlines. The federal government just blew a $10 billion hole in our state budget, and I can think of no better place to find savings than cutting the disproven expensive film tax credit. And just to show you that Hochul is not ready for the job that she's in, when they asked her about this study by Reinvent Albany, the statement released was, Reinvent Albany's math is worse than pineapple on pizza. So nearly $1 billion of your money, my money, going to keep Saturday Night Live and other television programs on the air and not leaving New York. Oh, did you see Elise Stefanik going after Hochul? This is going to be interesting now. Yes, I know. Before we get the text in, Elise Stefanik is not officially declared. Elise Stefanik has said that it's not a matter of if, it's when she's going to announce. But it was stated after Mike Lawler dropped out that she would probably announce sometime in November, after the election results. Still not really sure why. There's that major fear if she decides against it, that then the Republicans really don't stand a chance. But that's where we stand. But she is definitely sounding like someone campaigning for governor against Hochul. She is making the rounds. Someone told me a few viewers said she's going to be in Schuyler at some point, but she's going around the state. She's releasing statements. She released a big one yesterday. Then we're going to talk quickly about Mamadani and then get to some other issues as well. Most importantly, I want to read your comments, so keep them coming in. We got to take our first break of hour number 2. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
You lather, rinse, moisturize, repeat, and repeat. But it never feels like enough. It's not your products. It's your water. Hard water leaves a mineral residue that clogs pores and dries out hair. Culligan water softeners remove damaging minerals, revitalizing brittle hair and dry skin. Upgrade your shower and skincare routine with Culligan, water you love.
This is a Collector Consumer Alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you. Call me now.
Is this your mom?
Yes.
And that's your dad?
Nope.
I'm the father.
Even if you're the father, you're lying. My family does not like my boyfriend.
Solid family.
I've had enough of this. I'm not your mommy.
Now you're just talking crazy.
Don't do that. I'm not your auntie, I'm your mother.
Can't cross mama and come in here and get treated nice. Your case is dismissed and so are you.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are... Oh, I clicked on the wrong button. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's get to all these great viewer comments. Excuse me. First up, this viewer writes in, on the tax sale in Steuben County, there is nothing to prevent the county from having an anonymous bid to force up the cost of each or certain property for the benefit of the county coffers. These bids should not be anonymous, Formerly, the sales were public, preventing anonymous agents from jacking the auction upwards. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. For some reason, I got reminded about the New York State $200 check. Did these checks go out? I thought they were supposed to be out. Has anybody received them? Normally, they arrive around any kind of check that they have around October, around election season. So I have not received mine, but if anybody has, I'd love to hear from you. Comment from a different viewer. Frank, in my opinion, there are few things worse, if any, than putting a child in harm's way, and the trafficking makes me sick. The latest distraction, naming a young Trump and his alleged artwork in a letter, is intended to do just that, distract, in my opinion. I truly believe that no one is above the law, but the trouble with crying wolf so many times is that we become deaf and tune out. We have all had acquaintances in our distant past who we found out things about them that didn't match our values, and we cut ties with them. I know I have numerous times in my life. Truth matters. Thank you for that. I know we haven't talked a lot about that this morning, but Trump has denied they had anything to do with that drawing. Well, actually, there's more comments on this, so why don't I just keep reading? How about that? Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. The Epstein files were the Trump haters' only hope to bring the king down. How will they ever recover from their disappointment, as they've been trying to find some dirt for 10 years? Even the birthday card, which they believe was from Trump, which he denies, has fallen flat. We should take a moment of silence in their honor. Now get back to winning. Thank you very much. And finally, Ken writes in, I see some other ones coming in that came in after break. I'll get to those in the next segment. Ken writes in, the precedent has been set in the past that when someone does a heinous crime, others that incited, enabled, or aided that person can also be charged with a crime. Like the parents of school shooters have been charged and convicted. Why isn't anyone talking about charging politicians, prosecutors, and judges who write laws, defend criminals, and just slapping the hands of these criminals, which gets them back on the street without appropriate punishment, resulting in them ultimately murdering someone? That's a fair question, Ken, because look at these judges that let this guy in North Carolina go with just promising a written statement, promising he'd come back for court. And so he was out on cashless bail, essentially, on a written note. When he allegedly murdered that Ukrainian refugee. So that's a very fair question, Ken. I don't have the answer for that. That's out of my pay grade, but it seems like something needs to be done. We need to have the real conversation about public safety, not this idea of, well, I made changes to bail reform, like you see with Hochul, and you look at it and you say, no, you did for just putting makeup on it, but it didn't do anything to really keep us safe as a public, because this is happening everywhere. This is why the media doesn't want to talk about that stabbing, because they don't want Trump to be right when he talks about cracking down on criminals and cracking down on this violence. But I have to mention this. Elise Stefanik, who it is believed will be running against Governor Hochul at some point, she rebuked, and that's not a strong enough word, Governor Hochul. Did you hear what Governor Hochul said over the weekend? And this actually, this kind of answers this viewer's question. Hold on. Governor Hochul was at a predominantly African-American church on Sunday. And she was addressing the predominantly black congregation. It's True Bethel Baptist Church. And she was talking about the inflation rebate checks. She said in her speech, checks are coming out soon. Watch the mail, okay? Don't spend it all in one day. Get something you really need, okay? Don't stop by the liquor store, okay? Buy something for the kids. Buy them some food. Sometimes I have to stop by the liquor store too. I understand. It's all right. A lot of moving pieces there. The cringe factor there, I know. No one likes the term cringe anymore, but Now, let's see what Stefanik has to say. Representative Elise Stefanik released a statement denouncing Hochul's language, pointing out Hochul's pattern of dismissive messages towards the black community, raising concerns about a double standard, and pressing the governor to apologize. Again, proving the fact that Hochul should have never been in the position she's in. But this is what Stefanik said. This is not the first time Kathy Hochul has insulted the black community and spoken in a condescending, lecturing tone towards African Americans. Hochul is now showing a disturbing pattern of racial insensitivity by doubling down on her arrogant and patronizing tone towards the African American community. First, Hochul said black kids don't know what a computer is. Next, she assumes the black community is full of alcoholics who will blow inflation checks on liquor. If Republicans said this in front of a black church, Al Sharpton and Democrats would demand apologies and resignations. Hochul should apologize for insulting the African American community not once, but twice now. Now, the governor previously came under fire. That was back in May of last year when she was talking about children in the Bronx. She said, quote, right now we have young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is. They don't know they don't know these things. Good for Elise Stefanik for calling this out. There's also the weirdness of talking about, in my opinion, buying liquor at a liquor store at a church. I got to go to the liquor store sometimes too. You do too. And basically telling them, and to Stefanik's point about the condescension, buy something for the kids. Buy them some food. Don't stop by the liquor store, okay? Buy something for the kids. Buy them some food. Again, that's for our, $200, $150, $200, $300 check. Good for Elise Stefanik for calling it out. By the way, just as a side note, because we brought this up in the past, and if you're keeping updated on this, the New York State Court of Appeals heard 2 hours of arguments yesterday to weigh the constitutionality of a new state law that will move most local elections to even-numbered years to align with state and federal races. Now, I've talked about this in the past in the program. I'm against this. I think this is unfortunate. I think when you have someone like, we try to get so many people to run for local office on this program, we talked about it a million times. And I've always said, it's difficult. It's a rewarding process. But the problem is now you are going to be lost in the shuffle. If you decide to run for town council, city council, for mayor, manager, or not manager, superintendent, supervisor, Jeez, I'm getting ahead of myself here. If you're trying to run for any small local office and you are going to have to run the same years as let's say, one of our assemblymen, one of our state senators, one of our congressmen, who's going to get the coverage? If all of a sudden I'm looking at my list, now I know my scenario is a little different because we always try to get all the word out on our local candidates. But let's say I wasn't of that mindset and I said, well, I could have the congressman on, I could have the state senator on, the assembly person on. Sorry, town council. But anyway, leaders with the New York State Association of Counties support overturning the 2023 law that moves several local elections outside of New York City to even-numbered years. The 7 justices on the state's highest court will consider the policy, which passed the legislature and was signed by Governor Hochul to boost voter turnout. The thing that's really the burning question in our mind is a very simple one. What can we do as local government officials if we can't even set our terms of office? That has now been converted to a matter of state concern, and the Court of Appeals is going to allow that to happen. Now, the Republican-led challenge, initiated by leaders in Onondaga County, has brought the law through a lengthy legal battle, arguing it conflicts individual county charters. 20 New York counties are chartered or have locally drafted and approved laws outlining the structure and authority of county government. So anyway, I know that's a little wonky, a little bit boring, but something to keep a close eye on, especially if you're ever considering to run for local office, which I'd highly encourage you to do. If you do decide that, you'll see that the coverage that you would get, I know that's what people keep commenting on this. It's a weird, there's no sticker, there's no nothing. It's just a weird shine from the light. That if you do decide, it's already, you got to get petitions signed. You've already got to do the work to get on the ballot. And then, of course, if you have a challenger, you have to campaign and knock on doors. You know all about that. But in this scenario, you would also try to get some little bit of media coverage you're able to get. That is probably no longer going to be available. You're also going to have higher rates. You're not going to be able to get placed in ad buys if you have to go that way as easily. And let's face it, you're not going to get the attention that you would get if it was just a local year, because you're going to have a congressperson, assembly person running. So just keeping you updated. We'll keep you up on all the information that we hear on that. When we come back, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is demanding that New York leaders listen to the people. We're going to tell you about that when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Well, it's strained.
It is?
It's a repetitive motion injury. Do you do this a lot?
Well, I do give out a lot of checks. Now, what about this pain in my back?
Tender, huh? Do you play any contact sports?
Thank you.
Wow!
That explains it. Stick to friendly nods for the next couple of weeks.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Dante Brown, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Sharing the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud. 7 and 7:30.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. We got a lot of great comments come in. Sorry, I get a little distracted here because I'm trying to put them all together. So I'd make sure not to miss anybody. I was noted that I missed one yesterday. Okay. Here's a comment from a viewer. I wonder this every time Rick has a comment. Rick sent in a comment late yesterday to play on this morning's broadcast. Do you think we're chipping away at his view of the Republican Party? I'm also wondering if he feels agitated when he watches the show. I know as a Republican, it really makes me wince when I watch the shows like The View. Thank you. That's a great question. Nothing biased there, just a legitimate interview type question. I like that. Mark writes in, maybe Hochul should talk more to Frankie Focus as she doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that's a fair one, Mark. Ken writes in, as a side note on how expensive New York City is, my daughter and I had to go to the city twice earlier this year. Each trip was 1 day in the city. We just received the tolls by mail, because they bill it to you, right? They send a bill in the mail yesterday. The bridge, tunnel, and congestion tolls amounted to $78. Wow. So that's really a day trip is really getting kind of expensive for a trip to the city. Thank you, Ken, for bringing. I didn't realize it would be that much. Karen wrote in that there is Fox News is reporting there is a fine seeks to punish judges if they release repeat offenders who offend again. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder. Representative Randy Fine, I've got it right here. When did this come out? Just yesterday. Republican Representative Randy Fine, he's of Florida, wants judges to face consequences if they release violent repeat offenders who go to perpetrate additional crimes. I'm going to introduce legislation to hold judges accountable when violent repeat offenders they release commit new crimes. It's easy to release criminals when you're protected by an armed bailiff at all times. The rest of us aren't so lucky. He asserted that the judges that released DeCarlos Brown Jr. should have their day in court too. That's in reference to the North Carolina stabbing. Thank you for sending that along, Karen. Elon Musk resharing the tweet saying, sorely needed. Yeah, let's hope that gains some traction. I think it would make their decision process maybe take a couple extra seconds to think it through. All right, I think we had one other comment, two others. I used to be proud of the fact that I could say that I was from New York. Now I'm ashamed to. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, but I understand your mindset, especially with things like bail reform and some of these exorbitant costs. Comment from a different viewer. Can we use our Hochul check at the cannabis shop? Asking for a friend. Yeah, maybe they'll cash them there even. Thank you for that one. Something that Phil Palmisano has an op-ed. I don't believe I'll be able to get to all of it here, but it is really, really good. I would search for it online. But he says, as you may have seen recently, I've embarked on a statewide energy tour, joining with my Assembly and Senate Republican colleagues at all locations across the state where the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority is holding public hearings on the state's proposed energy plan. The goal of this tour is simple: to make the public aware that Governor Hochul and Democrats in the legislature are pushing policies that will continue to increase utility rates for New York families and businesses. The fact of the matter is, the policies they continue to advance are designed to dismantle the affordable and reliable natural gas infrastructure, supply, and delivery system. This, despite the fact that 60% of New Yorkers heat their homes with natural gas and 40% of our generation comes from natural gas. Their policies are designed to take away consumer choice and how you heat your home, cook your food, power your buildings, and what vehicle you drive. Their policies will jeopardize the reliability of the grid, leading to dangerous and deadly blackouts, and will continue our nation-leading out-migration crisis of more families, farmers, small businesses, and manufacturers leaving our state. The governor and Democrats in Albany are on a mission to fully electrify our state's energy grid with no concern for energy affordability, reliability, feasibility, safety, energy choice, or fuel diversity. NYSERDA also needs to expand its hearings to include Central New York, the North Country, and the Southern Tier. Currently, in-person hearings were only being held in Buffalo, Rochester, Albany, the Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island, along with 3 virtual hearings. It is completely unacceptable and unfair that the citizens and businesses of Central New York, the North Country, and the Southern Tier do not get an opportunity to voice their input. The state's draft energy plan says we need an all-of-the-above approach to our energy plan, including the use of natural gas, nuclear, and fuel diversity. Unfortunately, the policies being pushed and advanced in Albany don't match those words. Governor Hochul and the Albany Democrat-controlled legislature continue to side with far-left Green New Deal advocates instead of siding with everyday New Yorkers. Families and businesses across the state have already seen their energy bills skyrocket, while utilities continue to call for even higher rates because of the Democrats' green energy mandates, with more to come. In fact, in July of 2023, the PSC approved $43 billion in future ratepayer increases to pay for green energy mandates. The comptroller and others have estimated these green energy mandates will cost more than $250 billion. And I can't go through each one. We've talked about it. All Electric Buildings Act, the electric school bus mandate, the New York Green New Deal, Cap and Invest, the new electric vehicle purchase requirement. To make matters even worse, this plan will barely impact global emissions. New York is already one of the cleanest energy producers in the world. In fact, we contribute just 0.4% of global emissions, while China contributes 30%, has 1,000 coal plants, and is building more every week. We could literally cut our emissions to zero and have no effect on worldwide global emissions. All this shows that Governor Hochul is more worried about looking good to her far-left base ahead of next year's gubernatorial election rather than doing the right thing to advance policies that actually protect ratepayers while ensuring an energy plan that is affordable, reliable, feasible, safe, and protects fuel diversity and energy choice. That is what New Yorkers want. In fact, there was a poll this last summer where 71% of New Yorkers strongly indicated they did not want a ban on natural gas, including 76% of independents. In addition, 66% of New Yorkers indicated they want a balance between renewable energy resources and natural gas, including 74% of Democrats. The decision is clear. New Yorkers want energy choices and the use of natural gas to cook and heat their homes. It's long past time for Governor Hochul and Democrats in Albany to finally listen to New York families and businesses when it comes to our state's energy plan and policies instead of virtue signaling for votes. So thank you, Assemblyman Palmisano, for passing that along. All right. Boy, Zoran Mamadani offering up what they're calling, again, word salads. I think that term's being used a little bit too often anymore. The front runner in the mayoral election only had gobbledygook to offer on a range of topics during the Public Safety Forum at Columbia Journalism School, even when simply asked if he supported school safety agents working in the public schools. I think it's an indication of this broken status quo that we have many schools where they will have a school safety agent, but they will not have a nurse or a social worker. And I've been critical of that approach to our school system. Well, that's no answer. One longtime political operative said during this, he is about to find out charisma and charm are not answers. Tough choices have to be made, and as the young, inexperienced frontrunner, he doesn't want to make them. It's understandable, but not necessarily acceptable. At one point, we have a responsibility to address the struggles that New Yorkers are living with. And one thing I'll say about Donald Trump is he often diagnoses actual despair that people are living through. So that was not responding. I don't want to go through each one he didn't respond to. But Ken, we got to take a break. Stay with us. Your comments, more to talk about when we come back. Stay with us.
Your tap water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
When you're running, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Enjoy a taste Finger Lakes at Hector Hideaway.
Dine inside or out on the deck for gorgeous lake views and pair your meal with a local wine, beer, or beverage. Visit us today at Hector Hideaway.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
This is a Collector Consumer Alert. Hi, my name is Jared Johnson with SueTheCollector.com. Did you know that repossessions are on the rise in America? If your car, truck, or motorcycle has been repossessed by an agent that broke a lock, assaulted you, or trespassed on your private property, you have rights. Call us for a free case review at 1-877-BAD-REPO. You pay nothing unless we win money for you.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. So Frank, if I get my check and Elise does not announce I need a backup plan, any suggestions? Oh, great question. That's in reference to the inflation rebate check. A lot of people on this program have been saying if they get that check, they are going to donate it to Elise Stefanik's campaign, the $200 or so, however much it ends up being, to her campaign. I thought that was a really brilliant way to use what is, listen, we'll take the money, but it's not as if it's life-changing. It's not like you change your vacation plans and book that trip to Disney. So I don't have a suggestion. Let's open it up to viewers. I would say if it's not Stefanik, I guess save it for whoever does decide to run, because they're going to need it at that point. At that point, unless it's someone we really don't know, but has huge name recognition and a gigantic coffer, we are in a bad place at that point. So I'd say save it for them. Comment from a different viewer. Thank you for your continuing updates on Frankie. Yes, Frankie Focus, the mascot for cell phone bans. That adds a whole new dimension hearing. Let me try that again. That adds a whole new dimension. Hearing the process of how they had to interview people and their touring schedule, etc. Okay, that accounts for about $300,000 to $500,000 worth of the millions she is planning on using. I wonder what the rest of it is being used for. Great question. I do think some of it is for those yonder bags, not all of it. I mean, for whatever reason, New York City thought $13.5 million wasn't enough. They wanted more. But I don't have an answer for where all that money went, and I don't know if we'll ever get an answer. Ken writes in, New York, a.k.a. the Democrats, subsidizing SNL is to ensure that they will continue to prop up the liberal message and make fun of the conservative message. Yes, that's Saturday Night Live is very full of themselves, thinking that they are kingmakers, power brokers. I'm not sure how far back it goes. You know, Chevy Chase picking on Gerald Ford was big. But if you look at the power they think they have, I read a book on Saturday Night Live one time about some anniversary they were having, and it was a bunch of cast members being interviewed, and there was a section about the politics, and they really thought they were kind of judge, jury, and executioner on who was going to win president. Now, if you ever watched, and you want to talk about uncomfortable, watch the first episode after Trump beat Hillary. And the character, the woman who played Hillary, came out and sang a song and kind of cried. It showed that it wasn't about comedy, that it really is about pushing a political message. So I think you raised a good point there, Ken, though I would say even without the tax dollars, our tax dollars, they would still be pushing that liberal message. I think they have a history of that. I don't think we have to talk much more about Mamadani, do we? He did a very bad job in answering during that public safety meeting. Again, he's kind of untested. He is untested, so he can use these kind of platitudes and these pie-in-the-sky ideas for socialism, but he's not going to be able to back it up. But Cuomo's out busy writing op-eds. Now, Cindy Adams at the New York Post says, face it, Andrew Cuomo is the only choice for New York City mayor. Do you agree with that? Is Andrew warm? A quilt. By the way, Cindy Adams has kind of a unique style, so bear with me. Is Andrew warm? A quilt's better. There's no Miss Universe pageant. Nobody's measuring a contest. We need a doer. Some worry our ex-cop mayor, whom many love, has had his difficulties. And Tweedledee Tweedledum, who never ran anything, never met a commie he didn't like, hates cops, lives in an apartment meant for the poor, thinks Bernie Sanders is amazing, is scrambling to run for mayor of the greatest, richest, best, classiest, most famous city on the planet. It even survived de Blasio and his wife, the cashier. And of course, there's always a red beret who lives in a one-room apartment with 17 cats who do not vote. Andrew, number one, we must talk to business in this town. Make them feel wanted. Businesses fuels this town. Do something about the affordability issue. Create housing. Hires 5,000 new police officers. Put many in the subway like back in Mayor Dinkins' day. The far left's getting stronger and stronger. Anyway, so she believes Cuomo is the only answer. He was busy writing op-eds, even one for the New York Post, saying, my plan to deliver for New York City's 1 million school kids. I'm not going to read each of these, but writing op-eds, trying to get his message out there. He wrote one for AMNY. Denial is not a strategy, a holistic blueprint to addressing gun violence in New York City. Gun violence is not inevitable. It is not destiny. It is a result of choices. Our choices as a city. Let's choose safety. Let's choose opportunity. Let's choose life, said Governor Cuomo. Now, you remember at the time when he was governor, former Governor Cuomo, when he was governor, he said that pro-gun, pro-life conservatives, there's something else in there, are not welcome in the state. But speaking of socialists, Mamadani is a socialist, right? We talked about that poll earlier that showed that Democrats, 66% Democrats, they have a positive view of socialism today. AOC, who is a part of that rising stardom of socialist Democrats, her campaign spent thousands of dollars at the ritzy hotels while she was headlining fighting oligarch rallies with Bernie Sanders. To fight oligarchs, she must live like one. AOC, who fancies herself a working-class champion against the ultra-wealthy, appears to have lived it up at a ritzy hotel with her team during her cross-country fighting oligarchy tour with fellow far-left Senator Bernie Sanders. AOC's campaign shelled out $3,508 alone at the Videra Hotel and Spa, which boasts a 5-star relaxation retreat and posh penthouses. That was in Las Vegas during the tour in March. Baseline prices for some rooms at the Ritzy Hotel can run up to nearly $1,000 depending on the day. I don't need to go through the hypocrisy is shown over and over again, but this is a piece I had mentioned that we would get to a little bit earlier in the program. But the New York Post editorial board says, don't be fooled by conventional reading at the latest Gallup survey showing the country moving Bernie Sanders' way. The poll seems to show a small drop in America's view of capitalism, but a closer look suggests the only sure thing is that Democrats continue to shift left and fast. The pollsters report that the share of Americans with a positive view of capitalism fell from 60% in 2021 to 54% this year. Yet that drop came purely among Democrats and independents, an 8-point fall among each since 2021. And notably, for the first ever, under half of Democrats view capitalism positively, even as Democrats' positive views of socialism has soared from 50 to now 66%. Here's the thing. Without accessing the raw data, we can't be sure Gallup isn't overcounting Democrats when it calculates the numbers for Americans overall. And we do know that Americans are leaving the Democrat Party by the millions, with the GOP picking up about the same. An exodus that parallels the party's turn to socialism. In short, it's not the Bernie Sanders, AOC, Zohran Mamdani and company. They're not changing people's minds. The socialist lovers are simply driving those who disagree out of a party that's losing the rest of the country as a direct result. I thought that was kind of an interesting take on it. We got some more comments coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Haley Livingston, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Man-made climate change was proven to be a hoax years ago. Ask Climate Fact Friday Bob. The green energy deal may be more nefarious than we realize. Thank you. Comment from a different viewer. New York State needs a full forensic audit of its books. There's a lot of theft of taxpayers' money going on. I know back at the time there was a lot of people. I think someone even asked Assemblyman Palmisano how we can get Doge started in Albany. Well, the one party in rule in Albany makes that impossible. Another viewer sending in, if you missed it, Congressman Randy Fine is introducing a bill aimed at holding accountable any judge who frees violent offenders who subsequently commit additional crimes, like what we saw in Charlotte. Those 12-plus judges that released to Carlos Brown Jr. should have their day in court, too, he said. It's easy to release criminals when you're protected by an armed ballot, at a time. The rest of us aren't so lucky. And I mentioned that earlier, but thank you for bringing it to my attention again. And a comment from a different viewer. Silwa is the only choice for New York City mayor. Yeah, I don't know how. Last polls I saw, he was doing better than Adams, but still down from Mamdani and Cuomo, so I appreciate your point. Oh, by the way, did you see, well, there's a lot to cover here, but Paul Ryan, remember Paul Ryan? He ran with Romney, did not win his own state for Romney. He was at a private gathering in Wyoming, and this is because you don't really hear from him that often. And he is, it turns out, hypercritical of decisions by Trump, which should come as no surprise. He was one of the people that kind of hamstrung Trump in his first term when they had the House. In remarks to a private gathering in Wyoming, the former House Speaker offered his most unvarnished commentary yet on America's looming fiscal crisis, his beef with Trump's tariffs, and how to get the country back on track. By the end, the audience was even joking that he should take another run at the White House. That's Paul Ryan was one of the reasons that Trump came into power, if you want to know the truth. That was him and Romney were the ones that were kind of told, Republicans were told over and over again, the only way you can win is a Paul Ryan, the only way you can win is a Romney, the only way you can win is a Jeb Bush, and enough was enough because they just weren't proven winners, and he really hamstrung Trump's agenda when he was Speaker of the House. Kind of tying in with what we were talking about, trouble with the Democrat Party, Daniel McCarthy said just months ago a travesty was taking place in the nation's capital as the Biden administration drew to a close. And this is in reference to the commuting of the sentences of more than 4,000 federally incarcerated offenders. Only it wasn't Biden issuing the record-shattering number of commutations, it was his auto pen. And who controlled that? The auto pen's last-minute pardons weren't approved by the Justice Department. There was a mad dash to find groups of people that he could then pardon, and then they largely didn't run it by the Justice Department to vet them, said one insider. It wasn't Biden signing the papers, it was the auto pen. 4 years earlier, when Biden was taking office, his incoming staff secretary had told him his hand signature should be used for pardons. But if by the end Joe Biden wasn't running the Biden administration, it doesn't matter what he'd been told. It happened before. A little more than 100 years earlier, a stroke had left President Woodrow Wilson unable to discharge the duties of the office. But instead of a constitutional succession taking place, the president's wife and staff ran the administration in Wilson's place, with the president reduced to little more than a figurehead. Today, such a thing was supposed to be impossible. Voters were left in no doubt about Biden's mental incapacity after his debate performance. Democrat insiders already knew the score, but they were content to keep Biden in the race and even in power until the public's discovery of his condition made it impossible. Even so, Biden didn't resign, and his auto pen continued to issue orders, including quite likely life and death decisions about clemency. To stop injustices, voters have to be able to hold officials accountable. But which officials can they hold to account for an auto pen? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris haven't escaped the public's judgment, but behind them were Democrats whose names are unknown, yet whose actions Americans will long have to live with. Whatever shadowy collective was behind the Biden auto pen is still out there. The Trump administration is right to investigate who is really in charge of our government when the elected president evidently was not. What happened under Biden was a coup, and is not mitigated by the fact that Democrats committed a coup against an incapable president of their own party. The auto pen is meant to represent the president, not take his place. Clean up the crime in our streets is impossible without cleaning up the way government works and then unmasking the officials responsible for decisions that endangered lives. They can't be allowed to hide behind an automated signature or leaders who don't know what their pens are writing. I thought that was pretty powerful statement. All right, we got to take we should have taken our break. Yes, we should. Stay with us. We're going to wrap up today's edition after this.
This isn't your father's library. Create with the 3D printer. Release your inner audio engineer or sewing machine riddles, all with your library card. Go to getyourlibrarycard.com today.
You lather, rinse, moisturize, repeat, and repeat. But it never feels like enough. It's not your products. It's your water. Hard water leaves a mineral residue that clogs pores and dries out hair. Culligan water softeners remove damaging minerals, revitalizing brittle hair and dry skin. Upgrade your shower and skincare routine with Culligan, water you love.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I've had a couple viewers, and I don't mean to jump over and kind of combine them all, but it's pretty much the same mindset, which is why Curtis Silwa doesn't get the attention that he deserves in that mayoral race, that he gets very little mention on air, insulted a lot. All the coverage goes to Mamadani. There's a couple of reasons for that. Mamadani is kind of a new face, and someone, depending on what mainstream media outlet you go to, they want to see a Mamadani win. But also Silwa, his biggest hurdle is that he's ran so many times. He's always kind of been a character. This is not excusing why he doesn't get coverage. I'm just saying I think a lot of people don't take him seriously, unfortunately. And I think that's a little bit of what we see. And also there's an inherent bias, too, of why he's not getting coverage. So there's kind of a mixed bag there. Mark writes in, I don't believe it was an auto pen. I believe it was a Pelosi pen. Have a great day, Frank. Thank you, Mark. Finally, Carolyn Levitt took to Twitter yesterday to respond to the Journal's report, the Wall Street Journal's report on that birthday card with the Epstein file. The latest piece published by the Wall Street Journal proves this entire birthday card story is false, Levitt wrote. As I've said all along, it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation. And as I had mentioned earlier, J.D. Vance saying the Democrats don't care about Epstein. They don't even care about the victims. That's why they were silent about it for years. The only thing they care about is concocting another fake scandal like Russiagate to smear President Trump with lies. No one is falling for this, we'll say, baloney. Hey, did you see Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent threatened housing regulator Bill Poult, saying punch you right in your face, but he had a word in between your and face that I can't use. And so Stephen Collinson, in his ever-typical the sky is falling, he's from CNN, saying, why a near fistfight at a MAGA night spot spells danger for the global economy. All right, on that note, folks, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody joining us. We had a lot of great comments this morning. Thank you for that. As I mentioned on Thursday's broadcast, so get your questions in. We're going to have Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski in on the program. He's been a part of that tour with Phil Palmisano talking about energy, so we're going to have a lot about energy. And, of course, because he was a former congressman, we'll have some federal questions for him as well. So get your questions in at any time you'd like. That number on the bottom of the screen, 24/7. You can send in your comments at any time, day or night. Have a great day. Join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. I look forward to it already.
Lather, rinse, moisturize, repeat, and repeat. But it never feels like enough. It's not your products. It's your water. Hard water leaves a mineral residue that clogs pores and dries out hair. Culligan water softeners remove damaging minerals, revitalizing brittle hair and dry skin. Upgrade your shower and skincare routine with Culligan, water you love.